Hello and welcome to the preview show edition of the Blue Monday podcast, a 3 times weekly show looking into all things Ipswich Town. I'm your host, Richard Woodward, and I'm delighted to welcome back the brilliant Harry from Bath. Harry, how's it going?
Hi Rich, hi folks. Yeah, good week, all good here, glad to say. Yeah, I managed to get out on my bike for the first time this year.
Wow, New Year's resolution is this?
The New Year's resolution.
How long will it last?
Well, as long as I don't fall off, basically.
Yeah.
That was the highlight of my week. Let's just.
You should have a chat to Dave Diamond. He can tell you all about bikes and falling off them. No offense, right. Dave. Do you recall Dave's big injury?
No, go on.
Oh, well, I don't want to open up the, this is like 999 Lifesavers or something. Dave had a problem, didn't he do the football tour thing? The Amsterdam was it, and I think he did an elbow thingy.
It did, I remember.
Fortunately, he's all recovered. No. He's now got a robotic arm, I think. But he can tell you all about cycling.
And he's two-footed as well.
And he's two-footed, I've heard, yeah. And Stat can tell you about cycling as well, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, good on you.
There and back again, and in one piece. That's the object. It's a time
survival,
but not in the conventional sense. Absolutely. No, it's been a good week. It's been great, and plenty to reflect on. As I say, one game a week at the moment. Blackburn last week, which was we did warn everyone. Armstrong was the danger man, and so it turned out. But still, it was brave, hardy souls who made the long trip up there. Just
sat in the gods.
Yeah, exactly. Hats off to them. It was interesting. The thing, a few quick strands, just moving swiftly onto it. We're not going to dwell on Blackburn too much, but it's been talked about before. The patterns, the second goal following on from the first, which is the one that seems to kill us, and the opposition half-time switch, where they focus their danger on what they think is our weakness, as we saw against Bristol City and we saw against Queen's Park Rangers. I was joking at one stage, wondering whether we needed to, we were chatting about this before we recorded, whether we should maybe have 4 full-backs in the 6-3-1 formation, just to shut down the flanks, just kill them all together, just want to play, just have a team full of defensive full-backs, and that's it. Nothing's going to get through. Circle the wagons.
You say that, we'll still find a way to concede, won't we? We'll give away a penalty again. And it's really frustrating because I listened to the first half.
Yeah.
I was tempted to go, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And it sounded like Blackburn were getting sight, so we weren't watertight, let's put it that way, but we were in the game, and Keane had his chance as well. Rounded the keeper and probably could have got a penalty if he'd gone down there, but Scouse had done a good enough job on Dak, but we just give chances away. We just make mistakes. It was Collins or Scouse, and then Elder for this penalty is wrong-sided, and it's just frustrating how we actually keep ourselves in contention for big chunks of the game, and then it's just one moment. Accrington was exactly the same. We've seen it throughout the season. We just haven't got it in our heads to just keep resilient or to get rid of danger. It's just someone's brain just switches off for a second. We're a goal down and it's game over.
And we get punished. And of course, when you're at the bottom, you can't catch a break. I mean, that handball for the penalty, which wasn't given, was as blatant as they come. I saw who we got on Saturday. Is it Keith Stroud?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Fun times, everyone.
Yeah, fun times, exactly. But anyway, he's not Jeremy Simpson. Let's say that anyway.
No.
Everything is relevant.
Keith Stroud, sadly.
He's Keith Stroud, exactly. It's from the same bit of the Venn diagram. Anyway, but we can't catch a break as well. So in that sense, if the tiny 2%, the tiny percentages just keep going against us time and time again.
Something we both picked up on, and Amy mentioned it on the flagship show, is this lack of potency up front. We're just not creating chances, and we've seen it. All of our striking options appear to be isolated up front. It's just, I think we've probably got a question about this, but I'll ask it anyway. And we did kind of joke there about doubling up on the fullbacks, but actually, do we accept that we just can't keep clean sheets and we should properly go for it and try and just outscore the opposition? Are we at that point yet, or does Lambert persevere and try to build this kind of solidity and the goals will come? I'm not seeing it. We haven't had a goal threat all season, have we?
No. The standard model is you start at the back, you get it tight, it's a classic, that's what Mick did. You get it organised at the back and then you build out from there. But Amy's point, is so accurate. Blackburn had only kept something like 1 clean sheet in 13 games, and it takes time, particularly in an attacking sense, for January signings to click. I was trying to find the quote and I couldn't stand it up from the internet, but I know Sam Allardyce, I remember him saying once, and I'm certain it was him, said it takes 2 months for January signings to fully bed in. He said it almost as a routine. I think it might have been a Palace at the time, wherever he was. He just said it almost like an axiom. It takes 6 to 8 weeks. Don't expect it any sooner. So in that sense, getting the January signings in early is good,
Yep.
and so you have to look at it in that sense. But equally, it might take till mid-February before you see all of these start to click. And to be fair, Paul Lambert echoed that in his press conference. We were doing this on Thursday evening, and his press conference at Thursday lunchtime, he talked about new arrivals having no pre-season. The whole issue, Joe talked about it on Monday about the new arrivals not having match fitness, which Lambert also mentioned. We're trying to get the camera into focus in an attacking sense, but and I hate saying it because we've been saying it all season, it takes time, and we're running out of we are running out of it.
Yeah.
But who knows? But it is, when I say we're toothless up front, it does seem that way because Lambert has had to dismantle what he inherited and rebuild
Mm.
in an attacking sense. So therefore, the lack of a pre-season has caused part of the problem. But as he also said, we're in the fight. There's a little 4-team group at the bottom, and we're in there, and we're not too far away. So let's not totally give up hope. And you love Lambert, don't you? He talks about it in his press conference. I enjoyed here so much. I want to stay here. It's that news that broke last week about him agreeing the extension. My Stoke mate Paul was in, and we were chatting in the shop about it, and I said, he was in at 11 o'clock, and I said to Paul, I said, in many ways, relegation and staying up is less important than Lambert staying, because I
Yes.
was more worried about us dropping and no Lambert, and then suddenly Evans being left loose with another manager, and God knows what they do. Whereas having Lambert there means, well, we can send, we've got a safety net, we've got some stability, and of course that it all makes sense. Blackburn as well picked up on this last week. Blackburn fans picked up on Lambert's series of short-term appointments, and they knew that he wanted something more long-term as well. So in a way, it's he wants a proper project, and boy, has he got one. I mean, I don't know. That's my
Yeah.
6 months worth on
No,
it.
no,
I
and the
don't know if
quote that
you're.
I liked today
Yeah,
was, um, he said this a few times. When someone gets it
yeah,
right here at Ipswich, it will be brilliant. And he said something about no shortcuts or cutting corners, and
yeah,
you kind of get the sense that we'll briefly talk about Evan's interview as well if you want.
yeah,
Um, and you kind of get the sense that maybe under Hurst we had kind of a way of doing things, but maybe we did it on the cheap, or maybe we
mm,
didn't put necessarily the infrastructure behind Hurst and hoped again he would do what Mick did and kind of take over control of everything and be the focal point, which I don't think he ever was going to be a step up. So
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I totally agree that a continuity is something that we need as well.
yeah,
I was reading some stats for promotion from the Championship to the Premier League over the last 10 years, and they were saying that these are teams which have had the same set of players, the same manager for at least 2 seasons. And
yeah,
they looked at the likes of Derby, who chop and change their managers every year, they
yeah,
get new players in and try and refresh all of that stuff, and
yeah,
they are still in the Championship chucking money at promotion. They might do it under Frank Lampard, but this continuity is really important, and I think bouncing back from League One, we'll have a much better chance if we've got someone who's been at the club for so long, knows where
mm,
the deficiencies are, has an approach, has got the supporters on side. Hopefully, we'll stay on side,
we will do.
and it will give us
Mm,
much better opportunity, I think, won't it?
yeah, yeah, totally agree.
Should we talk Evans' interview then
Yeah,
briefly? There wasn't
yeah,
masses of stuff new there. More the stuff about Hurst. There was
mm,
a bit of not an apology, but an acceptance that maybe some things hadn't worked out the way he hoped, and maybe I don't think he threw Hurst under the bus, but there was some contrition about his role in the transfer dealings in the summer. Did you
yeah.
pick up on that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. My 6 was there's two main themes that leapt out of it: what happened in the summer, and then the whole financial model going forward. I
Mm.
mean, briefly on Hurst. In overall terms, first, I felt, whereas the summer interview that was recorded, the video recording, was heralded and flagged and trailed and everything. We were all ready to look out for it. This struck me, this little Q&A struck me as more like the cynic in me felt, and I could be wrong, it struck me as a slightly defensive move to mitigate criticism, which will come his way if he
I wonder
gets
if do you
relegated.
reckon
Maybe,
Lambert suggested he do it?
It could be.
Because
It
Lambert
could
had
actually.
obviously
Yeah.
lost quite a lot of goodwill, the coach thing
Yeah.
last week. But
That's
maybe he
true.
thought Evan, I think he
Yeah.
probably understands the criticism Evans. He's mentioned it before and said it's
Yeah.
unfair. Maybe he suggested to him, do you know what?
Yeah.
You should do something. Don't do a video, but maybe put something out there. I don't know.
Put something out just so that, because it is a good moment for him. Locking Lambert in for next season at the very least, is phenomenally good news. And to be fair, we all, I was one of the cheerleaders for Hurst. This 4-1-4-1 high industry using width and industry was all really exciting. We all bought into it, so you can't stick that on Evans. We were all equally guilty. But I wonder. Whether, looking back, could he have been more ruthless, Evans? There are questions around his judgment, not just this summer, but probably echoing back over the decade. He he did hold his hands up and say that it was too much change too quickly. And there is one thing which we'll come on and talk about when we come on to Villa, is when you change a manager and the manager changes the style of football, it's almost like a double change.
Mm.
So did not only did we lose Mick and bring in Hurst, but we also got rid of one particular pragmatic style of football and brought in. We were trying to change the way we played. So it's not just that the existing players, they're also like new players as well. It's a whole reinvention. When we come on to looking at Dean Smith,
look at Bart,
yeah,
exactly,
yeah. Exactly. And that can actually, you can't take anything for granted with the existing squad. And there are examples. I always use Wigan as the great one, where they went through 4 managers, something like 3 years, each had their own model of play. And in the end, they had a dog's dinner of a squad. And I know there are some idiots out there suggesting Lambert should go. Because looking at his results, this needs to be questioned. I mean, thankfully it's a tiny minority. But do we want 4 managers in 2 years and they all bring in their own players?
Yeah.
Where does that leave you?
Yeah,
Anyway,
exactly
that's lecture over. Anyway, but the financial thing is the problem where I have a problem with Evans. And he tried to justify it by talking about he felt that the lack of sustainability of the budgets for teams that either with the parachute money or those who are investing to compete with the parachute money. And I have a real problem with that, because the way I see it, parachute payments, every time there's been a new TV deal in the Premiership, it changes the financial paradigm in the Championship. Because if you can recoup 10 million, you might then invest 2. But if you can recoup 100 million from a promotion, you might then risk a 20 million pound investment, plus the fact that you can sell the club when it's in the top flight, when it has all this extra asset value built into it. So, you're laughing. So therefore, this 20 million investment, which he seemed to not look at it with disdain, but he seemed to distance himself from, I felt was, I think that's flawed logic. And I always go back to the fact he inherited a top 8 Championship team, and we have drifted down. And there is a definite link to me with the lack of commensurate financial investment as the league has evolved over the decade. And the only way you can compensate is by using good judgment. At the moment, to me, our model is more akin to Barnsley's than Bristol City's, for example, in terms of the way we're set up. And that might be unfair, but if you look at the teams who have done well and who haven't thrown money at it, they've all done it through good judgment. Quickly, I've got 5 quick case studies just to throw to everybody listening. Brentford is the great example. They've got a phenomenally sophisticated recruitment model. Ben always talks about the fact they're like Waitrose when they sell players. They assume that they have added value.
There's a cachet to it.
There's a cachet to them. We'll talk about Scott Hogan later.
Yes.
Yeah, that may not be one. Anyway, for Villa strikers.
They got money for him, though, didn't they? So they won't care.
Case study 2, Bournemouth. They got to the Championship mostly with lower league players. Cook and Elphick at the time were at Brighton. I remember when we used to look at them doing the notes. Hereford, they were all clever lower league acquisitions that Eddie Howe brought in.
Sermon and Gosling. Yeah.
But once they got into the final furlong, the season they went up, suddenly Kenwyn Jones appeared.
Yes.
They were shrewd enough. Yeah, exactly. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they put some rocket fuel in just to get them over the line and get them into the Premier League. And then once they've got there, then they've consolidated. Huddersfield, and you can put Huddersfield and Norwich together actually. Huddersfield brought in a brilliant sporting director, and then lined up a good German manager with good knowledge of German bargains, and they were able to reconfigure. But also, again, you had the coherence, a bit like now Wolves threw money at it. I'm not drawing the financial parallel with Wolves, but you've got a model where the sporting director, the manager, and the players are all suddenly synchronized.
Yes, it's backroom through all the way onto the pitch, isn't it?
Yeah,
all lined up.
Yeah. And I draw the parallel with Norwich, because the thing I would praise Norwich for is that they are both opportunistic and decisive when moments of crisis have arisen.
Yes.
They did it with Alex Neil as well, actually, but the two glorious examples were poaching Paul Lambert and Stuart Webber to engineer turnarounds. They looked at it and thought, no, it's not just enough to do a quick fix. We need to step back and think a little bit more strategically. And the final example, and it goes back a little bit, but I haven't forgotten this, was Burnley. They didn't throw a lot of money financially around when they went up. They were very lucky the first season they went up under Dyche. They didn't have many injuries, but what they did do in January 2011, they pinched Charlie Austin from under our noses.
Yes.
And again, a bit like Bournemouth, when they saw there was an opportunity, the portal had opened and they had a chance to go for it.
Yes.
They did go for it. They were very lucky with injuries when they went up, but they still, they made their luck in many ways. And I just feel time and again Evans has missed the boat when opportunities to progress have presented themselves. And nobody compelled him to buy the club. He didn't have to. You can't say, oh well, it's it's mad amounts of money being invested. You work with the rules of the industry that you're in. That's what we're in. It might be irrational, but that's it. And the other problem then is that if you're underinvesting relative to the rest of the league, it does create the risk of relegation.
Yes, you're swimming against the tide, aren't you?
Exactly. And that was pointed out very directly last season to Ian Milne. I know on one of the Life's a Pitch programs on Radio Suffolk it came up. So, he can't have been blind to that risk. But anyway, as I say, Paul Lambert is right. I mean, that's my 6 months worth on Evans. I don't know whether you disagree with any of it.
No, I don't disagree with any of that, Harry. I'm sure there'll be people listening who will be listening back to what you said there about the 14-15 January transfer window was probably Evans' last opportunity to give us that chance. And you think Bournemouth got Kenwyne Jones on loan. I don't know if it was in the January window because I think loans were allowed to be a bit further into the season.
It was later in the season. It was
March,
I think.
It?
Cardiff were utterly mid-table. They had nothing to play for, and they were desperate to shed some cash, to get some costs off the balance sheet, I should say, or off the P&L. Yeah,
and that was the 14-15 one was our last golden opportunity with a good manager. Let's not beat about the bush. Mick is a good manager. But in the end, we picked up some freebies, didn't we? A handful of freebies. All contributed. And Sears, who's contributed as well for a lowly fee. But you imagine bringing in a player with the stature of Kenwyne Jones to supplement Murphy, and maybe some other quality additions around it. That team would have, we were top 2 going into the new year and had a shocking January, if I recall, and a February. And then we're in the playoffs, and then, I think he'll look back at that, probably Evans, if he ever sells up. 14-15 was the chance to get his money to find the promised land and sell the club.
Well, that was when the port was open for us. As I say, Lambert, to be fair, has been very supportive of Evans because he's backed him to bits in this window, and he's right in the sense that if we're all, if we're in tennis balls country, throwing them on the pitch and protesting against the owner,
and that worked well for them, didn't it?
Yeah, no, it doesn't help. You said it on the flagship show a couple of weeks ago that all these protests, you won't defenestrate an owner. They generally tend to stick around. So, but you don't want to dwell on it. But it's just purely because of the fact that Marcus has popped his head up this week. I thought, well, let's just deal with it. We're not going to become a protest vehicle or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. But it is reasonable to fairly assess what he has done and move on.
Yep.
So and as I say, we'll come back to it in the summer when we reflect on the season. Anyway, there it is. Yep.
Well, talking about Paul Lambert, I'm trying to find a segue. There's many there. Talking about teams with parachute money and talking about teams with maybe an off-the-field approach that doesn't really correlate with what's going on the pitch. Let's talk Aston Villa. I've been looking forward to this one. Apologies in advance to everyone if I drift into a bit of a West Midlands drawl, but that happens a bit naturally now. I've lived up here for quite a while. Villa are strange, aren't they? Really, big club. Let's not beat around the bush. Villa are a big club. Anyone who's not been to Villa Park is going on Saturday. It is a big stadium. The whole end, when it's full, is fearsome. When
Yeah.
there's an atmosphere there, it's fearsome. I've been there for European nights. I've had a second city derby against Birmingham City.
Oh wow.
That is a chunky atmosphere
Yeah.
for the championship. However, when things are not going well at Villa Park, either because there's a run of form similar to what they're on at the moment, or within the match because they've got a high expectation of stuffing an opposition and it's not going their way, the crowd at Villa Park will turn. They will let their feelings be known. And I'm sure probably, Harry, you've in your research have found an opinion of a single player where someone says, oh, he was brilliant last week, he was the star man, and maybe two other opinions will go, he needs chucking out the team. We need to sell him, and that's Villa kind of summed up. It's not working out at the moment. They're on a bit of a bad run, particularly at home. I think their last win at home was actually against Birmingham in November.
Yeah.
And one win in 5, I think it is.
Yeah.
And this bloated squad as well. It's just, where do we start with this, Harry? Where should we start? I could go back through the team from our 1-1 draw back in August, I think it was. But maybe it's shuffled around a little bit and the formation's changed. But the key men, really, McGinn, Grealish, and someone who didn't play in August is Tammy Abraham. Is it worth us focusing on that trio?
They are the main three. I'd probably chuck in another player who won't be playing on Saturday, Axel Tuanzebe, the defender, the centre back, because they are the players. They add quality and they add balance to the team. And it's crazy when every week we talk about this. The first question is the balance. When you start looking for imbalances, they just start falling out all over the place, which is ridiculous in a squad. How many goalkeepers have they got? Was it five? Five goalkeepers. A couple of international keepers thrown in as well. It's
all of them as bad as each other, and the keeper is spotted. We'll talk about the keepers because you talked about the keepers in the last game, I think.
Yeah.
But in terms of this unbalanced squad, this was the same last season. Bruce was definitely just chucking as many of the big names in as he could. That continued to this season. The team that we played, and they were on a 100% record at that point at starting the season. They had Tuanzebe, who was playing at right back that day. They had Jedinak, who's a holding midfielder, playing centre back that day. I think El Mohammadi was in the midfield as well. I think he might have been playing right mid. Has Dean Smith done anything to address this? Is it more round pegs in round holes, or?
Well, it goes back. We talked earlier about Hurst replacing Mick and the change of style of football, and the real problem, stepping right back out and looking just the totality of what's gone wrong. I've written down here, it's a football manager case study. We've all played football manager, the game. It's great fun. You take on a pragmatic team, a Pulis or an Allardyce team that's played ugly football, and you think, well, I'm going to have them playing 4-4-3-3 passing football. And of course, the game flatters you, and you think, after a while, you're kind of careering up the table, and it's all looking very beautiful. The reality, and this is a classic case study, the reality is proving brutally different for Dean Smith. He's trying to develop a Brentford model of high intensity, high pressing, passing football with an inherited squad, and understandably, it has thrown up problems. And I've made a list of. This is in simple terms. This is a list of things that aren't working. He doesn't have defenders who can comfortably play the ball out. He's lacking a Ryan Woods or a Josh McEachran to pick up the ball in midfield and drive forward. Midfielders aren't showing for the ball or moving into space. Everything creatively is uncoordinated or disjointed, lacking in tempo. There isn't enough pressing when they're out of possession because the players he's inherited, poor old Albert Adoma, he doesn't have the legs to be able to do the pressing. This is what you're dealing with. Glenn Whelan in midfield. He's 35. He's not going to go herring around the field away. Think of Griffin Park on a sunny August afternoon and ask Glenn Whelan to do that. It's just absurd. The fullbacks he's got the
Scottish Cafu.
It's got the Scottish Cafu, Hutton and Taylor.
Who was at left back, by the way, at the start of the season. But
he was,
sorry.
Yes. But but the problem with them is they try to attack, but then they're incredibly, which is what the model demands, this 4-3-3 attacking model. But unfortunately, then they're halfway up the field when the game turns around and they're not, they're not Moses Adebayo, who can absolutely hammer back down into a defensive position quickly. So they've only got one decent striker in Abraham. All of the others are struggling with the model of play. They've also then lost Tuanzebe and Grealish to injury, which has then highlighted the shortcomings. And they are over reliant on. They've got one good player, Josh McGinn, at the moment, and in summary, they simply can't match the intensity of what Dean Smith was playing was playing down in West London. Also worth highlighting, they're an aging squad.
Mm.
Whelan 35, Hutton 34, Jedinak, who isn't featuring, 34, Adoma and Elphick are both 31. They're all regulars. Bjarnason is also struggling. He's 30. Al Mohammadi's 31. Kodja Taylor 29. They just don't have the legs to play the brand of football that Dean Smith wants them to play.
Mm.
And as a result, there are gaskets just popping left, right, and centre. Yeah, my view, looking, as I say, we'll drill into the detail, but the reality to me looking in from the outside is that this Steve Bruce's team, that project will be broken up this summer.
Yeah.
That project is over.
They'll definitely have to sell some as well, because the parachute money ends. It's kind of their season after Norwich on that front. They had money troubles before the start of the season as well, so don't put it beyond them to also have issues on that front as well come the summer as well. But there's there's probably on Premier League money. There's some players on chunky wages as well there. I'm probably you're probably right there, Harry, in terms of it being a rebuild job. Should we start the goalkeeper and work our way forward? Because I do want to talk about they've got their way through the keepers. It was Nyland at Portman Road, who was culpable a few times at that one, and Kalinic has played last week against Holland, was beaten. The ball went underneath him for one of the goals, and it went in the near post for the other. He came out and flapped at one. Missed the ball and it looped on top of the net and then he went in. Their keepers are not good, but then we don't create chances. But I'm surprised that Smith's
interesting.
Sorry.
Raya did spill one shot for which we should have in hindsight. If Keane had gone down and tried to buy the penalty, it would have made more sense. But last week at Blackburn. Now, Nyland is out injured at the moment, so that spared him. It's quite a serious injury. He's out for the season. But Kalinic, Croatia international, bought him from Ghent. He was trailed before January. He's spilling every shot. He's been spilling every shot, no matter how weak. He kicks the ball every time straight to opposition players or straight into touch. But they reckon it's early days. He's only had 3 games, and he's playing behind a very ropey back four. And you've also playing in front of a very expectant crowd. So suddenly you're going from Belgian football. He did play for Hajduk Split before, so he knows a little bit about, the Split Zagreb derby is fairly lively, to say the least. Flares all over the place. I've seen videos of it's quite a febrile atmosphere, but nothing on the scale of Villa. But
the whole end will be giving him.
Oh, they will.
Yeah, daggers.
Yeah. No,
Nyland sorted out, lad.
Yeah, eight goals in 3 games he's conceded, and but he has been thrown in. They think ultimately he will come through. They think he's a commanding keeper. He's a strong character who could actually, once he finds his feet, there's a lack of leadership in the team, and that's one area that it could work. But again, part of the problem with the distribution is the defence are not coming back to help him, because again, if you go back to the Brentford model that Dean and Smith is trying to bring in, it's about building out from the back. It's working the ball up through the thirds, and that's simply not happening. But he is, again, a bit like Raya. I would shoot on sight with this guy. I really would, because he is, all it takes is one flap, one missed cross, whatever. They think ultimately he will be good. So having him there now rather than having him there in March, I think is much better. Yeah.
So let's talk about the centre backs then. Chester played at Portman Road and he played last week, so I expect him in there. Scored the goal. But again, mixed reviews on Chester, particularly, I guess, in this style of play. I don't see him maybe as a marauding centre back.
No.
Thoughts on Chester?
No, spot on. Ex-West Brom. He has been poor generally all season. Never looking comfortable on the ball, prone to losing possession, getting turned too easily. We're playing a more progressive style of football that's exposing him. The players are, and this will come up time and time again, they're ill-suited to what they're being asked to do. he particularly is getting caught in no man's land, I think. There's been several times this has come up with the ball. He's so weak with a long ball over the top. He kind of he seems to lose his radar, and he's not quite sure where he is, where the ball is, and I'm more worryingly than where his man is. And there's been several instances of that coming up. So he's probably I'd say he's the weaker link of the two, because Tommy Elphick has come back. Elphick's an interesting one, because Elphick was on loan. He
He
obviously
was at Hull,
Bruce.
wasn't he?
He was. Bruce didn't rate him, and he had a major loss of form. And I remember at the time, Villa fans were saying, but before the August game, they would happily drive him to wherever he wanted to go. They couldn't get him out of the team quickly enough. A new manager comes in now. Elphick, he played at Bournemouth. He played under Eddie Howe. He understands.
Should have that pedigree, shouldn't he?
He should. He knows how to pass the ball out. They say he's 31. He lacks pace. He doesn't have that, but he is comfortable on the ball. And they think it'll take time. He rebuilt his confidence in playing for Hull, and this whole team, a lot of them are saying, oh God, how does he feel coming back from a high Hull that were storming the way up the league, having to drop back into a Villa team that's trying to reinvent itself. They were thinking that, they felt some sympathy for him for that. But they talk about him being comfortable in possession, pinging balls, good balls upfield and out wide. He's the kind of player whose confidence will grow under Smith, no question about that.
Maybe a leader as well.
Not so
Or
sure
is he
about
just
that.
experienced?
No, it's experience rather than leadership.
Oh.
Leadership, no, he's not the leader in the team. I don't think. I think it's actually, we'll come on to him and talk about him later. It's Tammy Abraham who's providing the leadership. He's only 20. He's only 21.
Blimey.
He's the one bollocking everybody out all around the field at the moment. It's really funny. He's really grown in stature, but we'll come to him later.
Well, possible leaders then. I'd look out to the flank. So you've got Alan Hutton on the right and Neil Taylor on the left. These are two Premier League season campaigners. Hutton's been around the club for some time. You talked about their limitations, but they're not offering in that capacity either.
No, they're not. Quickly on Elphick. One other quick issue. He's not physically domineering, nor is Chester. They're not units. They're not Millwall in that sense. They're not big. It's just a small thing to add in as well. A quick line on one backup, which is Courtney Hauser, who's come in on loan from Wolves with an option to join permanently. He does have the physicality. He's big, strong, and quick. He's not technically. I remember Wolves fans saying this. He's not a technically creative player with the ball. So it's an odd one in that sense. But he has got physicality. But he lacks match fitness big time.
Right.
He came on in that they had a horrible 3-0 defeat against Wigan a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
He came off the bench in that, and he did himself no favours. So just a quick, he's plan B for them at the moment. I'd say it'll be Elphick and Chester. Right, okay. Neil Taylor and the Scottish Cafu, Alan Hutton. Right. Where do you begin? You see, the problem is, last week we talked about Blackburn and said, "Oh, the left back, we can get at him. Let's get at Amari Bell. Let's give him a hard time." And it didn't really happen. And I feel the same here, because again, they've got real problems at fullback, and you kind of go, "Well, come on, let's hurt them there." But we're not quite able to do it.
We need the players to get him behind, aren't we? And one of those players would have been Lancaster, who's now out with an injury, isn't he?
No, Lancaster. This was a perfect game for him, actually. You got fullbacks who either lack motivation or lack pace, stranded halfway up the field, and you've got Lancaster who would then be able to kind of attack the hole where these players, the space that they had left. But maybe Quaner can do it. I don't know if he plays them out wide.
I wonder whether Gwion Edwards might get a chance at redemption, perhaps.
Who knows?
Maybe fancies it against in the less dirty, less rough games like Blackburn would have been. Maybe I don't know. But in terms of views on Hutton, I got the sense maybe a few years ago Villa fans were looking at Hutton thinking, he's like stealing a living. He keeps getting contract renewals, and I think probably in the Championship he's getting on a bit. He's probably found his level, and that goal he scored against Birmingham City in the season was a doozy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And Neil Taylor is another one for good experience. So it's a bit weird to hear them. Mixed reviews.
They're very negative reviews, I'd say, particularly in Taylor's case. The problem with Hutton is, it's almost like that goal was the worst thing that could have happened. They talk about him making these 80-yard forward runs and making a big show of it for no reason, and leaving the whole right side of the defence exposed. He's the right back. And one of them said he can't bomb forward like a 22-year-old. And then another guy came straight in and said then he shouldn't bomb forward at all. In other words, there's a lack of discipline. He has this idea of being... One of them said he's more like an attacking midfielder than a right back nowadays. That's fine when you can do that, but when you're 34 and you don't have the legs, that causes problems, particularly when we get onto the midfield, who may not be the most industrious industrious at getting across to cover. If you've got Glenn Whelan as a holding midfielder, and your fullback has gone up the field, don't expect Glenn to be able to hammer over and cover if you're then doing them on the counter. This is where the lack of balance kicks in. He is more attack-minded than most of the team, and they like that, but he's defensively very questionable. They also think he's more about him marauding forward and shooting because his actual final ball isn't that great either. But they absolutely hammered him for one of the whole goals last week. He lost his man and casually jogged back, and there's a pattern of that coming. A few of them the Villa fans are suspecting. They're looking and thinking, look, we're not going to be here next season.
Yeah, heads are going.
The heads are going a little bit. Talking of which, then we come on to Neil Taylor, left back, ex-Swansea, Wales international. If Hutton is suspect offensively, this guy's even worse. One of them shouted, put on one of the match day threads, "Don't bust a gut running back, will you?" Went,
Yeah.
They were that frustrated.
Love a bit of Brummy sarcasm.
Yeah. He said he went for a walk with the second Wigan goal and he hasn't been seen since. And this is cruel. He says attacks tend to die when he puts a cross in. He's really bad. He loses possession. He passes backwards. Doesn't come forward. And he's getting rinsed by wingers. The problem is he doesn't do any. It's the tracking back bit. He's leaving. This. It's a very flaky defence and it's leaving it badly exposed. It really is. Yeah. Plan B is the backups, just quickly. James Bree, who is, you see, the thing I'm watching with Smith is he thinking about next season who he's going to have. Bree was a really tidy right back who's only 20 when he came in from Barnsley. They bought him as a prospect. He's raw. He's solid. He doesn't offer much going forward. He may well play, given how bad the other pair are. He would be a right back. He would replace Hutton if Hutton then switches across to cover the even more incompetent Taylor. And he's an asset in a team playing on the front foot. He's one of those players I think as he gets more games, he could grow in confidence and a more attacking dimension could come. He could be a Smith project, as it were. He may have that in him. But at the moment, his kind of weakness is again, it's inexperience. He plays speculative crossfield balls which go nowhere. So he'll get forward and then he'll play something that looks like it's a bit creative, but in fact it's a nothing ball really. So he's not quite there yet. The other plan B, and I think here's a classic Steve Bruce player, Ahmed El Mohammadi, who did play against us in August.
In midfield,
But Egypt international, he's followed Bruce around, and I think that some of them would happily drive him to Hillsborough now. Al Mohammadi, too many years. He looks solid. His positioning and decision making now are appalling. He needs to be quicker on the ball and firm challenge. Scared to tackle. The only thing he's ever had is a good whip cross. He's always been a wing back to me. When Bruce went up and he played that 3-5-2, he played Mohammadi on the right hand side as a wing back and he was very effective in that system. I don't think he's an out and out full back and he doesn't have the legs. He's 31. He doesn't have the legs to play as a winger. So he's kind of caught between the two. So as I say, it's this is a theme we'll keep returning to about rebuilding. It's so that's the defence really needs you could argue it needs a complete overhaul. So onto the central midfield.
Yeah, so shielding it is likely to be Bjarnason, isn't it? Who again is played at Portman Road in the summer. I think was bombed out of the team for quite a while and has come back in and maybe had a good few matches, but again is dropping off again, isn't he? His form is dropped. I'm not hearing good things about his form at the moment.
No, we could look at him and Hourihan together, Conor Hourihan, who, as we know, briefly, it never really featured for us, but he was in his early career. Bjarnason first. There's a pair of them in it. Basically, they are poor man's Ryan Woods / Josh McEachran, who we talked about earlier. They're not capable of playing with the intensity that Dean Smith will want from a midfield. Yep. They're good at what they do, but they're not. It's not good enough, basically. They're not fit for purpose. Bjarnason first. Seeing Birker Bjarnason in the team makes me sad. That's a really painful, plaintive comment from one of them. Slow at getting up on the second man. This is the problem. It's the lack of awareness and the lack of intensity. When the ball breaks in midfield, second ball breaks in midfield, the first challenge goes. He isn't alert and aware. He gives opponents too much time with the ball. He doesn't sprint anywhere. He runs around. He's got lots of energy and he can put pressure on people, but he doesn't. There's a lack of urgency. Urgency is the big word, actually, in midfield. It's the fundamental problem in the team. the lack of the midfield, because not only is it not supporting the defence by taking the ball out from them, but just as equally, it's not supporting the wingers, and particularly without Grealish, it's not supporting the striker.
Yeah.
So it's a pastel shade midfield where they actually want primary colours, because that, if you look at Brentford, that's where it all happens.
It's
It
all
really,
about
really
McGinn,
does.
isn't it? It's all about. It
It
sounds
is.
like it's McGinn and Abraham that
Yeah,
just make
yeah.
things tick.
Yeah. So as to say, Bjarnason is one example and Hurahan's the other. They said about him, he doesn't seem to have an impact on the game. Yeah, if you've heard this before, floats like a butterfly, stings like a butterfly. He's far too passive and casual. He doesn't make himself available for the centre halves, and he'll often, when he gets the ball, rather than actually doing what Brentford would do, where you turn, you look forward, you're looking for the wingers, you're looking for a diagonal pass where you can actually play something forward and incisively. What he does is he plays the ball back to the defenders, pointing out where they should lump it, which is an anathema to the way Dean Smith would want to play.
Yeah.
They do like his set pieces. Hurahan's always had a good set piece.
Good one against Hull, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Right in front of the keeper. Just
Yeah.
didn't have to do much on that one.
That is the danger. So again, we need to be switched on for that. But between the pair of them, they are a bit of a they are, I don't know, they're a bit of a mirage really compared to what Smith wants. Whelan is plan B, and he's 35 now. And again, if you think the other two are weak in this area, Whelan is utterly inappropriate now. He just does not have the legs for this. One of them said what he does do is his protection of the back four seems to amount to making sure no pass enters the D. That's his kind of area of patrolling. He kind of covers the D in front of the penalty area, but he just doesn't have the mobility to get across to in any way to protect either the fullbacks, which is what you normally want, or to be able to take on a midfielder breaking through at pace.
You need to think of him like a midfield version of James Collins, who's the same age. The only difference being that Collins has maybe got a quadrant of maybe 10 metres where he will move, or maybe less, 2-3 square metres where he'll move around and find the ball. Whelan actually has to patrol a big chunk of the pitch, doesn't he? And I guess his brain's probably eager, but the body maybe isn't.
Yeah, it's a combination of not having the pace, but also not having the technical ability. It's the two together. It's a classic, as I say, going back to, it's a classic Bruce signing, and another one who, again, you would just see out the door. The one good Bruce signing, which you just mentioned a minute ago, was John McGinn. And McGinn, they adore this guy. They really do.
What might have been? I think we were.
Yeah.
I think
we were. Mick was. Yeah.
We talked about this in the summer, I think.
Yeah. You could have, you could see a player like, he would have been perfect for us. What can I say about him? They said,
they love him, don't they?
Can we sign 8 more McGinns, please? And they said, one of them said, John, you've been doing the work of 3 players. Would you mind for the next month doing the work of 5?
We'll put you in the defence,
yeah. Enthusiasm, energy, a ball of energy. He picks up the entire midfield work. Occasionally, strength taken to excess can become weaknesses. He occasionally holds onto the ball for too long. He can be ambitious with the shooting. He doesn't have Grealish's vision and incisiveness to be able to play. He's not that sort of a threat, whereas because Grealish had an end product, he had that little bit of attacking quality on top of that. McGinn doesn't quite have that. But then it's, he came from Hibernian. It's his first season in the Championship. He's only 24. You feel that there's more to come from him. And one of this lovely quote I saw, he's carrying the whole team, and this great line, he plays every game as if it's his last. I mean, that's high praise.
And he stuck out at Portman Road because he'd only just recently signed.
Yeah.
Great assist for the goal for Kodja. But was everywhere and seemed to want the ball as well. That's what you want of a midfielder, is one who's asking for the ball from the players around him.
Yeah. I mean, you can see how him. I just briefly mentioned Grealish, who won't be there. Grealish has got a shin injury. He picked it up it was a game in early December against West Brom, and they have badly missed him. The thing that Grealish was able to do, you could see him and McGinn together being perfect as a midfield pairing, but one of the other things Grealish was able to do was he was able to draw players to him, which then freed up the wider players and the striker. He was able to give them more space just by him being physically there.
Yes,
because they were always.
He's a bit of a magnet, isn't he?
He's in defenders and in holding midfielders' heads. But of course, whereas you think on Saturday, excuse he's up for it. You just say, right, Cole, just put yourself on McGinn. If McGinn goes over to polish the corner flag, just give him a hand. That's the type of man marking job you want to do.
I've written that down, and as we mentioned before, he did that to a good extent against Dak as well, and it worked for most of the game. So I've written Scouse versus McGinn on Saturday.
Yeah. couple of plan Bs which may not feature in midfield. Henry Lansbury, he's been battling with a hamstring injury.
Can he be this week's? Is he there? He's a
No,
Villa, is he?
He is. Where are they now? He
Where are
came
they
back
now?
because he was another Bruce signing, another one of those expensive additions. I would say.
Championship, as you said, Football
Yeah,
Manager.
yeah,
It's just buying all the best players in the Championship, isn't it?
exactly that. You've got him. The other where I think now what you'd probably include, believe it or not, he's still on the books, though he doesn't have a squad number. Is Micah Richards? If my
I spotted
research,
that as well. Yeah.
if my research is right, he's only 30. Bloody hell!
What's
You know,
happened to him?
that's appalling. Anyway, there it is. Anyway, what do we know? We weren't close to the scene. Anyway, but Lansbury, getting back to Lansbury, he did play in the FA Cup game against Swansea, but he did impress fans because he's not industrious, but he can pick a pass.
Yep.
So one thing Lansbury's always
Definitely
had,
creative.
and so maybe when he regains his fitness, could he be a deep line playmaker? But the thing with Lansbury, it's always been, I don't know. Forest fans were very frustrated. Is he up for it? Basically, yeah. The other plan B who might come off the bench is a guy called Callum O'Hare. He's a prospect who's coming through. He's only 20. He's had a couple of run-outs. Good ideas, but his touch lets him down. He could be a Grealish, but he's not at that level. But he's in that model, but a very raw version. But again, Dean Smith would be looking at him and thinking maybe next season, he's thinking, I certainly won't have Glenn Whelan, but I will have Callum O'Hare. They're more just watch out for the name if he comes off the bench.
Another youth product that I expect to see something about is Andre Green.
Yeah, spot on. Yeah.
So is he? I'm trying to remember if he's a winger or not.
Yeah, he is left winger.
Sorry, we'll come to the wingers in a bit then. Or should we do it now?
No, we do it now. We've done the midfield now. We've pretty much covered the midfield. But let's have a look at the wingers. Green it's a brilliant link in because he has come back on loan from Portsmouth. Now, one winger has come in this month and one winger has gone out.
Oh, the one who's gone out. Let's talk briefly about this one. I have seen some stuff. I follow a few people on Twitter, on Twitter. There are some amazing GIF responses to Bolassi's return back to Everton. They are not disappointed to see him driving up the M6 back to Liverpool. There was one where it was this is what Bolassi does when he gets into a crossing position and someone doing break dancing and moving around crazy without actually crossing the ball. No end product basically is what I hear. Lots of tricks and lots of cute little flicks, but very little of any note. I'm just trying to look at his assists and his goals. 2 goals for us. 2 goals as well as see. Any assists? Not many.
Not for the money. Show pony. A FIFA street footballer who can't finish.
Yep. Sounds about right.
And also he didn't care. That's the other thing. They were really furious with him. That's it. And when he'd lose the ball, he'd just give up. He was, show pony was the phrase that came time and time again. They despised him. They really did. Every attack breaks down when that headless chicken gets the ball. So no, and God knows what money they were paying him as well. That's the other thing.
Loads, wouldn't it?
It would have been, sort of.
So they won't be. Yeah, they're not upset to see him go. But going back to Green, any chance of him coming in?
I think Green is somebody that Smith specifically wanted back. He was on loan at Portsmouth, high-flying Brett Pittman's Portsmouth.
Did you see his overhead kick last week? Pittman got an overhead kick last week.
I did. I know.
Yeah, I think it was Super Franz who raised on Twitter what we would give for a Pittman. I always looking back, felt we tried to play Pittman like he was a Murphy, which he definitely wasn't.
No, he wasn't.
Really good footballer, really intelligent, just
Finisher.
really poorly used, and actually I feel really disappointed when he left.
Yeah,
having a really good spell at Portsmouth. Good luck to him.
Yeah, but Andre Green, yes. What can we say? I think he's a real. I think he's been brought back with a view to next year. They're mid-table. Most Villa fans are not expecting to get promoted this year, so they're out of the cup. So
they're 13th at the moment, 7 points off it, aren't they? So they can take a bit of a run.
I think, given the way they're playing, and given the traffic in the way, they're not expecting it. But Green, they like, and he's one to watch on the left. Not a kick and rush type winger, but he has wider awareness and he can fit into a system. He's got pace and quick feet. He's got a decent shot and his crossing is okay. He's only 20. He's less of an X factor than the other wingers, but he's more reliable and effective. So he won't do some piece of beautiful magic. I remember Lee Tomlin doing when he played out wide. He'd do something, go, oh, that was fantastic, but then he'd flatter to deceive. Green is more consistent. He's more trustworthy. The things he has to work on are classic things of a player finding his teeth. He must work on his positioning, and he has a little habit of drifting out of games. Concentration. We see that with many young players. So I would be surprised if he doesn't start. because he's the strongest left winger they have. And you've got poor old Bert on the right. Um,
Uncle Albert, yep.
Uncle Albert Adoma. Um, I remember it was him who tore us to bits against Middlesbrough a few years ago.
Yes. Was he
And Mick
against
ended,
Chambers, I think?
it was, and it was one of those situations where Mick shut. We were 3-0 down, and Mick made a few defensive substitutions. He wrote the game off and said he didn't want us to get slapped. That was I still remember. Mick used the verb slap very memorably at times, and that was one example. But I feel
He's getting on, though, you say?
Yeah, 31. They fear it's a question of pace and age. They wonder. He had one really hot spell when he was at Villa, but he hasn't really come back. He hasn't. It hasn't been consistent.
He had quite a long spell without doing anything. I'm trying to remember if it was him or Codger who went on a really long barren spell of not scoring any goals or anything like that.
And then there was Adoma, and then he came good for about 3 or 4 months. He had a really hot
against
spell
us and scored 2 against us, I think.
Yeah. He had one major purple patch, is how they describe it, but he has lost his pace, and he's reluctant to take defenders on. He can track back and close down, which they have missed. He will do that, but he does little with the ball now. Again, going back to what I was saying about a Bruce signing, people with one eye to the future, he has the look of a man trying to wind his career down and going through the motions. So he's there, but he's not there, if you know what I mean. So he's not. He'll probably have an absolute wonder game against us now. I've said all of that, but you never know. But he's not. I'd have been more worried about Armstrong last week than I would be about Adoma this week. Put it that way. The plan B is a guy called Anwar El Ghazi, who they got on loan from Lille with an option to buy, and he's ex-Ajax. He's a Dutch international, actually.
Been some good clubs, isn't he? I was looking. I don't know much about him, to be honest.
But he hasn't. He's been loaned out, and they like him, but he hasn't managed to consolidate. Because Lille again are a really high-flying French team. You think you get in there, you get a high exposure to European football, and then you get the big move to the Premier League. Hasn't happened. It's the classic winger, blows hot and cold. Frustrating at times, capable of magic. He's the opposite to Andre Green, less consistent, but Green doesn't have the same level of fantasy about him. El Ghazi. They say he's often the only real threat of anything happening, but he can be overambitious sometimes. He needs to improve his decision making and his all-round game, particularly with his positioning again. Good at running at the ball, but his uncompleted pass rate must be incredibly high. Classic winger, basically.
Yep. Is there a possibility that Codger might move out wide? Can we talk about him very briefly?
He has done. We'll swing into the strikers now because he has played out wide. They don't think it's his natural game, particularly defensively. Because if you're out wide, something Freddie learned very quickly was that if you're out wide, you've got to look after your fullback,
yes.
and they do worry about that.
He'll be expecting to see someone past him, won't he? He'll be overlapped by his fullback.
Exactly that. It's a tricky one. Kodja. It's the same criticism they've made of him before. He's an immense player, but only when the system is fully designed to accommodate him.
Yes.
So you have to build it all around.
He has to be the photo. That's a really good thought. That I hadn't thought about that before.
Yeah. He does have an end product. We know that, but he's technically very good. His work rate and urgency are questionable. It was a criticism Bristol City fans made when he played there as well, that he plays within himself. He doesn't, he's as long as I'm fine, everybody else can kind of, you can sort yourselves out. And again, often dribbling too much instead of laying it off in attacking space is a regular criticism of him. He lacks Tammy Abraham's wider attacking game, and he doesn't press defenders urgently, which again takes you back to the problem if he is playing out wide. He can change a game, and he is decent in the box. He has got quality and he can finish, but he frustrates them. He's not and if you're in a team where there's only going to be one striker, it should be said that Dean Smith will switch to 4-4-2. He did it against Hull last week, as circumstances dictate. So you can have a Kodja Abraham duo up front. That's not beyond question.
And he's good in the air as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that comes up as well. Yeah. The main man though up front. Shall we talk about him? Yeah, let's talk about.
I was going to say, do you want to get Scott Hogan out of the way?
Let's get Scott Hogan and Keane Davis.
Because he's got no goals this season, big money. He is under big pressure from the Villa fans, isn't he, to deliver something? And the expectation was Dean Smith will bring the best out of him.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened.
Hasn't happened at all. His touch has turned to rubbish. I think it's a major confidence problem. They see him as a useful bench option, but he started against Swansea in the FA Cup, and it seemed the way I was reading the match day thread, and you just wanted to just come on, have a cup of tea, come on, have a hug. He really needed it. He doesn't seem to be a starter. he tries hard, but it's not a lack of effort, but he makes errors at crucial times. He doesn't finish chances. His touch isn't there. They have the debate: is he a bit like Jordan Rhodes? Is he a striker who runs the channels and you don't play the ball high to him? Because without Grealish, a lot of Villa's play is predicated on wingers crossing.
Always
Often,
has been, as long as I've watched them.
Yeah, and again that fits in with Bruce, but particularly with Grealish not there. But the problem is Hogan. The debate is Hogan is better with the ball, a bit like Jordan Rhodes, spinning off the last player, running into space, into the channels, and attacking and driving forward that way. But other people say no, it's not that we're not playing the right system. It's just that he's useless. Putting it bluntly, about as threatening as Timmy Mallet was the worst I've found.
You got to say that with you got to do that with a Brummie accent.
I can't do
it.
Timmy Mallet. I can't do it. He's supposed to be a live wire playing off the last man, but he's slow of feet and mind. So it is sad. But bizarrely, he's one of those players that if Villa wanted to offload, because he's not. He's not a town player, really, is he? We don't need him. No. It occurred to me a player who we know can be good, and who can. But he can't play on his own up front. That's the other problem they were saying, that he needs support. Now, I suppose you could say he had the support when Grealish was around, but part of this problem is augmented by the fact that the midfielders aren't.
He needs a move for his career, though, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. It's gone wrong.
How old is he?
He's 26. Is that the height? This is the height of his powers.
Missed opportunities there.
Yeah, he broke into the Ireland squad. Well, he has got talent, obviously, but it's just gone horribly wrong. The other player, quick one-liner on Keenan Davis, because he might feature at some point. Davis is a 20-year-old youth product. He's an out-and-out target man. He very selfless. He can hold the ball up, bring Abraham into play, but the one thing he doesn't do is score. But he does everything else. But he's only 20. He can beat defenders with skill and pace, create space. They don't have anyone else like him to do that type of role. He's very Millwall the way to describe him, but he's not able to, and he won't score enough goals. And the problem is, if you play him up front leading the line, where are the goals going to come from? So. Yeah, so just to mention him, because he may well come on, if they want to go to a 4-4-2, you could see him and Abraham working together. Kodja and Abraham will do one type of attacking model. Davis and Abraham will do the other. And moving on to which then, basically...
Yeah, straight ourselves in, everyone.
Yeah. So you lead off. What are you hearing at your end?
What haven't I heard? I mean, let's start by saying he's on loan from Chelsea, isn't he? So probably on big money as well. 17 goals. Scores all types of goals, is everywhere, is busy, is also quite physical as well. They love him, but I think there's a worry that he's disguising maybe some of the limitations that we talked about in terms of Hogan and some of the ageing players. I think he was a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It was a last hurrah kind of signing in the window, wasn't it, to try to get them up to the playoffs. And the trouble is, he's probably provided his end of the bargain. And the rest of the squad hasn't followed suit. Grealish being out hasn't helped. But it's all about Abraham, isn't it?
Yeah.
He can win the game on his own, really, on Saturday, couldn't he?
He could do. Yeah, he's turning into a proper all-round striker. You can see how he's evolved. Obviously, we saw what he did at Bristol City. I mean,
to a lesser extent. Well, yeah. You think back, he did well for them, didn't he, at Bristol City?
But in terms of
level now, isn't it?
Yeah, the line of progression is what I mean.
Yeah,
he's got
absolutely.
He's definitely got an extra dimension to what he had then. He's not a finisher. Funnily enough, they say about him that he's not somebody, he won't pull a rabbit out of the hat, in terms of he won't produce a fantasy strike that nobody saw coming. But he is very effective when a chance does come. That's where he's good. He's like Pittman, who we talked about earlier. He is a proper finisher. Give him a good chance, and he will make the most of it. He really will.
But he'll tap in. He'll do headers. He'll do half volleys from just inside the area. You do get different. Yeah, he'll take his chance. Yeah. He will try and score.
Yeah, they also love the fact that he's staying. I think he could have gone back to Chelsea.
They record him briefly, and then he's come back. I think they wanted to cash in, but Wolves, I don't think, were willing to pay whatever fee they're asking for.
It's so no. He
that would have hurt, by the way. Him going to Wolves, it would have.
It's West Midlands pride and all of that. But they in that sense they love the fact that he has come back to them. And why he has stayed, I don't know or care. All I know he's scoring goals. But it's not just his finishing, his movement and all-round play. They talk about as well. He can hold the ball up, though he's not a hold-up striker, but he can do that.
He drifts out wide, doesn't he? He comes to get the ball.
He can play wide and he does his defensive work. One of the criticisms of Kodje is the fact that he leaves Abraham to go herring around closing down defenders while he just sits back and admires them. Whereas Abraham is very selfless that way. A shining light in a pretty shocking season. And as I mentioned earlier, he's been a leader. He goes around giving pep talks, instructions, and bollockings to some of the other strikers, other players, I should say, on the field. He's only 21, and yet he's not afraid to do that. You just feel here's a player whose confidence is really growing, and he's taking. In a team devoid of leaders, to me, he would be the one who would, if someone's going to grab the pike staff, it's going to be him. And I think that's why he's one person who could rescue the season at the very least. But and of course he's getting a whole half season of proper game time rather than stewing back in Stamford Bridge. So in that sense,
his value's only going up.
Exactly that. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how. Collins versus Abraham will be an interesting duo.
It'll be a proper battle.
Versus McGinn, also interesting.
Yeah, and let's see if we can land a blow on that defence, because it is suspect. 8 goals in the last 3 games, 3-0 defeat against Wigan with a home crowd. I said this in the notes when I was preparing. I didn't say that, but there's 2 types of team in mid-table. There are the teams that haven't got a lot of quality but are well organised and are doing really efficiently. So you've got Birmingham, Queen's Park Rangers and Blackburn, and we tend to struggle against them. The other type of midfield, or mid-table team I should say, are teams like Stoke, Swansea or Villa, who've actually got a lot of really good players, but they're just a little bit dysfunctional. But I also said, well, it doesn't miss it, which probably the chances are
we'll still lose 2-0, Harry.
If we lose 2-0, but you never know. You never know. Exactly.
Anyway. Just to make people feel even better, we've beaten Villa twice since the turn of the 1990s, including that last gasp 1-0 where Emir Hughes scored, which I missed because I decided to be militant about our defeat to Lincoln City and went and found other football plans and wasted an afternoon in Stoke. So that'll learn me. And then one in the 90s as well.
Because that day when we beat Villa, the famous 1-0, it was a horrible day.
Yes.
I was a 2-scarfer. It was an absolutely bitter winter's day, and you were in Stoke.
Yes, I was in a diving bell. I was, I was trying to. To be fair, I was in the main stand, so it was less. The winds were less. Me and my mate, I was there with my mate Seb, who's also a Tam fan. God bless him, who drove us across the motorways on the same day, and we were there going, bloody hell, we should have gone to Villa. But
being optimistic, can we reference the 2 shirts that are behind you?
Yes,
because they are of happier. They're of happy vintage.
Ish. I mean, it was tough. It was tough. I don't have that away shirt from that 1-0 with Emma Hughes, but I have, for those of you watching in black and white, and those of you listening to the podcast, apologies. I remember last week we talked about this and I just pointed to stuff. So I have a 2001 to 2003 home shirt, the TXU incorrect shade of blue shirt, where we managed to draw 0-0 at home to Villa. That run of draws and defeats that probably didn't give us any favours in surviving that season, but we didn't lose to them at home. And I've got the old 92 to 94 red laces. This is a replica rather than the actual proper shirt. This is the merchandise shirt. We managed to beat them at Villa Park 1-0, also a 1-0 in the 93-94 season away. So that is those are the 2 shirts I have behind me. So there's hope.
Yeah, roughhouse wins are achievable at Villa Park.
We can do a 1-0. Shall we? Well, in terms of strategies potentially to get more goals, let's talk about Daryl's merged 11, which has been an ordeal for him. It's been tough. And he's proposed a formation that you're a fan of, Harry.
Oh yes, it's a Victorian throwback. It's 2-3-5 we've gone with purely due to a lack of numbers. This is a heroic 11, and we also have some substitutions. We've got a couple of strikers that we can bring on as well. If we're not happy if there aren't enough goals, we can take the defenders off and just literally go 0-3-7.
Just go.
So, okay, let's run through it. So let's talk about the poor. That's at the back. You've got Andy Marshall in goal.
We just need to dwell on Andy Marshall. I got involved in a bit of a Twitter debate about how bad he was in the Premier League relegation season. So I don't want to call him out, obviously, but I'm watching back some old footage for something I'm doing for Blue Monday, and the goals that we can see with him in goal just. Anyway, so yes, let's get through that.
Yeah, but he's well protected. You've got David Unsworth and James Collins sitting in front of him.
That'll do.
that's fairly tight. However, the midfield, we've no fullbacks. There are no fullbacks. We could have had Donacien, but in the spirit of him not playing for us, he's not playing in this team either. So he's on the bench.
Daryl
Anyway,
mentions he didn't play for
yeah,
Villa, but I'd prefer your reasoning instead.
yeah. Now the midfield, brace yourselves. This is so protecting the back two and the keeper. We have Nigel Rio-Coker, Conor Hourihane, who we've just discussed, and Jordan Graham. Yes, that is frightening. It really is. It's a terrifying defensive setup. I mean,
I could just imagine Unsworth and Collins just facing the world. It'd be like the Game of Thrones thing where Jon Snow's in the middle of this barrage of horses running at him.
Oh dear, oh dear. However, now meanwhile, at the other end of the field, we've got
Here's our front five.
Our front five: Marlon Harewood, Alan Lee, Dalian Atkinson, Darren Bent, and David Geddes.
I mean, there's goals there, isn't there?
There's got to be goals there. There really has to be. And some of them, I suppose, they could swing out wide. I mean, the movement. You got to have Lee, I guess, as a focal point with Bent, and the other, and Harewood is.
Harewood out wide, I reckon.
Yeah, Harewood possibly out wide. That might work.
Bent
actually.
as well, maybe.
Yeah. You could possibly have Bent drifting out. You've got everything there. You've got movement. You've got athleticism. Players might be able to drop deep a little bit, so you could. Yes, it's quite frightening, really, isn't it? We've also got Simon Dawkins and John Dean on the bench as well to come on if we need more goals. And obviously Lambert is the manager, so we'll have that. Yeah, there we go.
Good stuff, Daryl.
It's been emotional this week, Daryl. That's all I can say. It really has.
Let's do some questions. We mentioned Dawkins there. And that leads to a question that we've had about players who are out of contract. Should we do this one? I've got these written down. Let me just find the question and who asked it so we can do it properly. So from Paul Gray, which out of contract players do you want to keep and who are you happy to see depart at the end of the season? Should we try and do these one word if we can?
Yeah, let's go yes, no.
Let's do them in the order that the EADT did their article. Which might give you an indication of how they went with it or how people voted because it was a poll. Chambers?
Yeah.
Got to keep him.
Yeah.
Bishop?
Keep.
Yep. Wolfenden?
Keep, no question.
Yep.
In the League One, if we assuming we drop, that is, yeah. But even so, I'd keep him if we stay up. I would keep Wolfie, no question.
Two fullbacks, Kenlock and Emmanuel. Does it depend on the league again?
It depends on the league. Definite keep. I mean, Emmanuel has got a League One promotion medal. Let us not forget this fact. I would keep them both. If we stay up, I would like to keep them. I'm not sure Lambert will.
Okay. Spence. It's got to be Vai, hasn't it?
Thank you. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for the memories.
And on the other side, we've got bloody fullbacks coming out of our ears. Knudsen. Knudsen's got to be off, isn't he? I mean, it doesn't sound like he's going to be leaving the window, but
it's weird. I mean, if he's not going to leave in the window, why not? The thing is, there's no disadvantage to us then playing him for the rest of the season.
That's what Joe was saying. Yeah, Joe made a really good point on that.
Yeah, he's a free transfer then, so he's going to be gone anyway. So but yeah, it's modern football, eh? Yeah.
Gherkin.
Ooh.
I'm not a fan, I'm going to be honest.
No.
But League One, probably competent.
Depends what if you're looking to rebuild and come back up again, I'd probably have a major rethink on the keeper strategy, to be honest, if we drop. Okay. I really would.
Yep.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be disappointed if he leaves.
Yeah.
Two midfielders Grant Ward, who, that Barnsley hat-trick, poor guy. Obviously quite a significant injury, but Grant Ward...
He's versatile, but he's utterly inconsistent.
Yeah.
Oh dear. No, I'd say let somebody else take the risk with him because even in League One he could blow hot and cold, and that's the sadness of it.
Needs to get his career back on track.
You can see what he has in him, but yeah, it's sad. Yeah.
You can respond with a question back to me if you want. Tom Adeyemi?
Yes.
Who?
Exactly. Oh dear, no. I think just cut our losses.
We've got let's quickly with there's three players. Well, I think we think that Danny Rowe's out of contract as well.
Yeah.
We've got a question about Danny Rowe, so we'll come back to him. But in terms of contract, keep or let go, if he's out of contract, I might be wrong.
I would tend to say let go because he's never broken in. He has looked a bit peppery, if I can use the word, when he has made substitute appearances, but he's never really made an impact the way you would expect a winger to. He's another version of Guion Edwards in that sense. It's smoke and mirrors, but not necessarily an end product that you can actually grab hold of consistently. Yeah,
Agreed. Let's just quickly do the question on Rowe whilst we're here then.
yeah.
Jay Cook, should Danny Rowe feel disappointed at lack of first team opportunities under three different managers? With pace and a decent shot on him, I've always felt that he has something to offer given a run of games. Agree with
Every
that?
time, no, well, from what we've seen, I would say no. That's a personal opinion. Because it's just what we were saying a second ago. He looks everything the part. He's busy, he's pacey, etc. But and I remember it was against Forest, I think, in the final game of the season
Oh
a couple of
yeah.
years ago. He looked. It all appeared to be there, but it doesn't seem to. It never seemed to add up to anything.
At Forest, he gave the ball away quite a lot though, and
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
was caught out defensively.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
think probably at Championship level, that's more important than maybe at League One. But
Oh yeah, you
um,
get Tyrone Mings is great truth. You get punished in the championship for your mistakes. You
yeah,
really do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, And then, so the three signings who are on short-term contracts: Collins, Judge, and Dawkins. I suspect Dawkins probably won't get anything unless he does something interesting between now and
Well,
the end of the
let's
season.
let's let's see what he's got. We haven't seen it. Jury's out on him.
Yeah,
But the other two, I'd hug you if they stayed. I really would. God, please. Yeah.
yeah,
Judge in League One would just cause, he could be an incredibly destructive player. He really could.
yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're talking about
Mm.
Championship. But yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. League One. Um, Question on Dawkins. Paul Simcox, who says that he's
Yeah.
from the awesome Southwest Supporters Club. Um, So shout out to those guys.
That's huge.
What do you see as the future for Dawkins and Edwards? Do you think they'll get a look in now? We kind of talked about Villa's weakness maybe being the fullback options going too far up the pitch. Um, any thoughts on whether they'll get a chance?
Dawkins, I would hope it's a question of match fitness with him, and we'll see what he's got in him. Um, Edwards, the more I think about Edwards, the less happy I am with him, to be honest.
Yeah.
I just feel he the odd fleeting moment of brilliance, defensively incredibly suspect. I
Yes.
would say I really would. He's got to prove to Lambert. He's got to regain. On the trust question. I wouldn't trust him as a teammate out there. If I was a fullback, I'd be very worried about him in front of me. Yeah, but
Yeah.
and that could be just a lack of experience. I don't know. Let's see what he got. But
Perhaps. I
if
think
you
maybe
went, if
it's. I,
yeah,
I think Lambert and probably Mick Pryor as well look
yeah,
for wingers to put in a shift, and he doesn't do that, does he? Doesn't help out
no,
as fullback.
no,
Accrington, as we talked about a few weeks back, he just went missing as well.
yeah, yeah,
So I think probably in answer to the question, Paul, I think we don't expect a huge amount from maybe 5 minute cameos off the bench
yeah.
at best. Jules, Gillian Hughes, what system would you play, Harry, to exploit Villa's weaknesses and have a great show? Well, hopefully it's been a good show.
Yeah.
We thinking width is the answer.
I would have thought so. And I would put pressure on the holding midfield. I would take the game to them. I really would. I'd put pressure on the midfield. I just have a feeling that if you get in the faces of the fullbacks and whether it's Hurahan and Bjarnason, whoever they have sitting in front, lock down McGinn. Lock down McGinn. Just say to Skuse, just follow him around the field. Just don't let him out of your sight. Just kill him. Double team him if necessary at times.
Yeah.
But then just come down, put pressure particularly on the midfield. They have got errors in them. They will turn the ball over and then just rely on Keane's finishing to hopefully do something with that. That would be my approach with it. I would try some form of high press if that's been developed in training. And someone like Judge, wherever he's playing in that area, just around the edge of the penalty area, whether it's centrally or out wide, however Lambert uses him, he can find, if we can turn the ball over, get it to Judge, get it to Keane, bang, goal, you're in. That
It
that
might
would
be a
be,
really good
yeah,
opportunity, good game for Judge, actually, mightn't it? It
yeah,
might be given quite a bit of freedom.
yeah, yeah.
So we'll see. Hopefully, yeah.
They can be got at, this team. They really can.
So
Yeah.
Harry Butcher asks, wow, this is a deep one, Harry. If we could answer this, Harry and I would be earning loads of money as a football consultant. Why can't we score in away games?
We talked about this very early in the. It goes back to the fact that I think we will start scoring in away games more as the season goes on, as the rebuilt attack starts to gel.
Yep. You don't think there's a systemic or a
Yeah,
tactical issue there?
yeah, yeah. It's I think the model that Lambert is playing will deliver goals.
Okay.
It's way more creative. It's got more attacking intent in it. I mean, put it this way, it's probably closer to Dean Smith's model at Villa than to Steve Bruce's model at Villa. Put it that way. That's so in that sense, it has the potential to deliver goals. Inevitably, it will, but it just may take a while to get there because it's easier to here I am saying this. It's easier to coordinate a defense quickly. It's more difficult to get it to get an attacking quartet
Yeah.
kind of synchronized. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Question from Arthur, which I got a little bit involved in questions on fitness. Why has Scouse been, in his opinion, why has Scouse been rushed back from injury? He's clearly not fully fit, and even if he was, surely the likes of Downs, Dazelle, Bishop, and Hughes, which is where I'm not sure Hughes' fitness is anything to write home about, and as has been shown, he's out again.
He's out
Will
again,
offer,
yeah.
and they'll offer more in an attacking sense, which is what we need given our desperate need for goals and wins. I think so. There's the debate about Scoose's worth. We're not going to get into that because both you and I are fans of his and know exactly what Scouse brings to it. In the terms of the fitness point, do you think Scouse has been rushed back? Do you think that's necessity, maybe?
We've no one to replace him.
Yep.
We've simply no one to. Nobody else can do the job he does. Not just in terms of his role and his anticipation of danger, but the balance and the stability he gives to the midfield. So he's, until you get another Scouse in, you can't take the Scouse you have out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I don't think it's Scouse's fault. Never has been. That the players who are in front of him aren't creating as much as maybe we'd hoped.
Yeah.
So we're big fans of Scouse on the preview show at least. The Barley Weasel. When we do get relegated, do you see a complete clear out of the squad, or will Lambert seek to retain the core to give us the best chance to get back up? I mean, it comes down to the out contract players, doesn't it, really, Harry?
Yeah.
But do you see him doing a kind of chuck it up in the air and start again?
There's going to be a lot of players leaving. I think you'll see most of the Hurst signings go. And in the way Dean Smith is building with one eye to next year, Lambert is definitely building with one eye to next year. So no, I can see a lot of departures. It's going to be a huge transfer window, this one coming up. I've no doubts about that. Whether we stay up or whether we drop, either way, it's a lot of the. We've talked about the Mick has-beens, if I can describe them cruelly as that. So people like Spence, possibly Grant Ward, people who've had their moment under Mick, they'll go. Plus, all of the Hurst brigade will go. There's going to be, it won't be quite Clapham Junction. It won't be as insane as last year because Lambert will try and keep a core around what he's got, and he'll try, insofar as humanly possible, if we drop, to keep people like Judge, Chambers, Collins. Try and keep a spine of the team together, but I can see it. I can see it being a busy summer. Yeah.
Yep. Benjamin Airier. We've talked about Evans, Ben. So hopefully that will be all right for you. It's about hesitancy to spend in the transfer market and trusting managers and so on. I think we've probably talked about that.
We've covered that. Yeah.
I'm sure Ben and I think I'm on the flagship because it's Villa on Sunday, and whoever we might talk about that again. One more legitimate question, and then one question for fun. Let's pick one. James, we talked about Marcus Evans, so I hope we don't mind us skipping through that. Let's talk about Mullet. Hopefully, I'm going to see Mullet on Saturday. Are Villa the epitome of everything that's wrong with the division? Parachute payments, huge wages, high expectations, and nothing to show for it, or is it us? I'm going to let you go first up walking up to Villa Park on Saturday, Mullet, after that one.
Oh dear. I mean, there are lots of case studies like Villa. I mean, teams who've come down. It's not easy when you get relegated. You lose a lot of your better players. Stoke are seeing it. The teams come down and we all look at them and think, oh, they have all these great players. And when you actually talk to the fans of the clubs, you realise that these great players aren't as great as everybody on the outside thinks they are. And they've got a whole pile of problems that come with them. So yes, I think he's right. I'd say Villa are probably more typical of what's wrong with the league. Our struggles are trying to, and going back to what we were saying about Evans earlier, is trying to come up with a coherent, effective model to compete against this irrationality, is how I would put it.
And we
That's my
can't
six.
complain about
Yeah.
parachute payments, really,
No,
can we? That's
no.
just what it is.
No, and to be fair, those parachute payments are used to get rid of a lot of the a lot of the misfits that we've just been talking about in the last hour. Yeah.
And what good has it done Norwich and Villa, frankly, parachute money?
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe it is us, at least it is this season.
Mm.
Final question from Blue Soap. My wife has got a crush on Benjamin and recently fell in love with Harry's accent. Richard, what can you bring to the party? I don't know if that's a question for me or a question for you, Harry. Congratulations on your accent. What can I bring to the party, though?
The poor man's Darrow
Some
Breen.
cocktail sausages, maybe some Scotch eggs.
No way. Benjamin and his lustrous locks. No way. No. What you've got is something that Ben and I probably haven't got in a million years, which is the ability to sort out any technical problem in a house that can humanly go wrong. I mean, give me a technical problem, an electrical problem, and I will have the house on fire in 20 minutes. Whereas Rich, I'm telling you, you could just blow us away from that point of view. So anyway, plus a whole lot of other stuff as well. So we'll, if the premise of the question is vaguely accurate, which it isn't in the first place anyway. So that's my view on it anyway, Rich. You are to be profoundly envied, I would say.
Very kind of you. I'll bring to the party some. I'll bring some videos, some music, and unlike Benjamin, your wife won't be pulling hair out of the plug hole. I'm not blessed in that department, so that's a benefit. But hopefully, I can bring a bit of laugh and a bit of listening as well.
And one other thing, Rich, you will definitely bring is some fantastic technical wizardry for the live show, which is coming up. That's we were talking about.
Segue.
On there. Absolutely.
I was about to say I can bring some hostage skills to the party, but I've just been out-hosted by Harry, which is good stuff. Yes, 16th of February. The tickets are selling like the proverbial hotcakes, and I think Ben's trying to see to confirm how much we need to sell before we max out. So I think tickets are still on sale. We'll all be there. Stoke Ipswich in the afternoon. There are some really good plans of brewing. Ben and I have got a bit of a tactic session. We're meeting up for the Villa game. I'm holding his pencil case during the match, I think, on Saturday. Making sure that he doesn't get mobbed by his fans because we're in the home end.
Solemn duty.
But yeah, I've got some hopefully really great video content. Great agenda. All the guys will be there. Harry, you'll be there too, won't you?
Looking forward to it.
We have our slots. So come and join us, please do. I know some of the guys, I think Darryl might be coming over from America. Some guy might be coming over from New York as well. I was on Twitter earlier, forgotten his name. Apologies for that. So come and join us. It'll be a great laugh. And hopefully we'll be celebrating a win as well. Let's do some plugs before we say goodbye. Harry, your blog and your Twitter.
A blog goes up on TWTD at Friday lunchtime, and you can find it either on the homepage at TWTD or at Harry from Bath is my Twitter handle. Anything that I post up there or any other stuff I write will usually be linked on the at Harry from Bath on Twitter.
Fantastic. You can find all of our Blue Monday details on our Twitter at Blue Monday ITFC, including tickets for the 16th of February. And you can follow me at Ipswich. And I shall be back with Ben and another, maybe Mr. Diamond, maybe Mr. Statman, maybe Guinevere will throw up someone different instead. Back on Sunday to talk about whatever happened at Villa. And we will be back next week to talk Sheffield Wednesday, Harry.
Indeed.
Which may be Steve Bruce's first game.
It could well be, actually. It'll be interesting to see, having heard Villa's fans' thoughts on Bruce, which aren't too kind. It could be hilarious to see what the Owls make of him. That could be really funny, actually. Anyway, have a great weekend, everyone.